Hello everyone, I'm Babla Jonathan and this is The Inside on Equinox Television. In this edition of the program, we're going to look at the impact of the Anglophone crisis on communities and councils. We'll also be taking a look at the implementation of decentralization. Many critics have said the failure to effectively implement decentralization as enshrined in the 1996 Constitution of the country is one of the major causes of what is happening today in the northwest and southwest regions of the country. In a second, discover our guest. He is from the crisis-stricken part of the Republic of Cameroon. He is from one of the two Anglophone regions of the country hit by socio-political and security crisis for more than a year today. He is from the southwest region of the country. His name, King Michael, Mayor of the Muyuka Council, one of the parts of the southwest region highly affected by the Anglophone crisis. Mr. Mayor, welcome to the program.
Thank you, Mr. Journalist.
Now, you're from the southwest region of the country, one of the two Anglophone regions hit by socio-political crisis that escalated more than a year today. What is the situation on the ground?
Thank you for having me on your program. The status quo still remains the same, except for the fact that I think in the town itself, Muyuka, classes are going on. Shops are open daily, but constantly we have threats from the rural area like Muyuka, Bafia, and I think economic activities have slowed down seriously. The security situation remains precarious, and so it's just a wait and see situation.
And government has maintained that the situation is getting stable, is gradually returning to normalcy. And even recently, during the visit of the Army Chief of Staff General Zumika to the northwest region of the country, some military officials equally indicated that the situation was returning to normalcy. But this is in contradiction to facts streaming in from the two regions of the country.
Well, I will give you only what I can tell you, which is happening in Muyuka. The rest of the other places, I'm not really sure of what is going on there, other than the fact that I think the crisis is almost crippling our economy in Muyuka. You know, council rely on taxes, especially the global taxes. If we can't even collect those taxes, I think it has a very big impact on our projections.
We'll be looking at that in greater details. But first of all, let's look at the impact of the crisis on community life. We have several parts of the two Anglophone regions that have been completely devastated. Some houses have been burnt down, the villagers have fled, and some of the villagers, notably from Kumba, are now seeking refuge in neighboring Banga, and they fled as a result of conflicts between some forces, unidentified individuals, and forces of defense.
I will tell you about the situation in Muyuka. No matter what is said and done, I think the beginning of the year, when we're not sure of schools to resume, most parents had to transfer their kids to other regions of the country where classes have been going on effectively. I think that by itself is a destabilizing factor as far as a family is concerned. Now, talking about burning of houses, I myself have not witnessed a situation, but I think if that is a true assessment of a situation which is going on, then it is deplorable and regrettable.
Yeah, we have places like Kwakwa where houses have been burnt down.
Those are houses of KMER.
We don't exactly know who did it.
Who is that? That is a question. Who is doing it? I strongly believe it shouldn't be any Cameroonian to go and put down a house in Cameroon that belongs to another Cameroonian. If that's how lengthy we have gone with this crisis, then I think only God needs to bless the country. Because I don't think brothers and sisters should quarrel, should disagree to the extent where life has to be eliminated. I think we've gone that too far. And the earlier we redress the situation to the normal, I think the better for for this peace-loving country.
Life has become not as usual. Things have completely changed in the two Anglophone regions, including Muyuka, where you are.
It's very certain. You remember that on the 22nd of September, when this crisis started, it started in EQUINOXE. And then I and the duo, by 5 in the morning, we had to drive to meet the guys who wanted to demonstrate their right to free speech. And we gave them as condition that we are ready to march with you, so long as you don't burn houses, so long as you don't stop vehicles. And they agree. Mr. Journalist, I want to tell you that that was the Anglophone spirit. We marched with them, came right to EQUINOXE yard, and when the sun, it was hot, they themselves agreed that we should return to the base. And when we returned to the base, I went to the park and addressed them. And I gave them some money to go and take something to cool down the heat. And I think it goes to demonstrate that those children who were marching, I learned a lot from them. They are Cameroonians. Amongst them, you had degree holders, you had A-levels, you have first school living, you have GC O-levels. And what was the cry? The rate of unemployment in the country is high. Competitive entrance examination is not the way it used to be in times when you wrote an examination and you could go and wait for results to come out. There are so many things that are going on today in the country. No matter what is said and done, Mr. Journalist, Cameroonians need to sit down and address those problems squarely. Everybody is saying, the prelates are saying, the politicians are saying, the children on the streets are saying, our peasant farmers are saying. So what is still holding us as true brothers and sisters from the same country to come on the table and look for our differences? Look, last time I was in the South Province, and when I hear a place they've been for 2 weeks without electricity, is that normal? It's come on. So it is not only an Anglophone crisis, it is a crisis in the country, whereby,
of course, when the two Anglophone regions are suffering, when the inhabitants are suffering,
of course,
it is affecting the
when
rest.
Part of your body is hurting, the whole body is hurting.
So how are the inhabitants of Muyuka, for example, coping with the uncertainty, with the fear?
It's a wait-and-see attitude, as I told you. And it's not only hurting Muyuka, it's hurting Cameroon as a whole. Many business people, when they want to, you talk about business to come and invest in Cameroon, they say, we are not coming. Because we learned there's war in Cameroon. That is not a true picture of what is going on. But again, as I said, if part of your body is hurting, the whole body hurts. So no matter whether we want to agree or disagree, it is hurting. And every Cameroonian, even the treasury of Cameroon, is hurting. You see delays in payments of internal debts and other things happening. It's because a good chunk of financial resources usually came from the Southwest region, and it's no longer there. Go to Edi now.
No,
go to every part in the Anglophone. The finance that used to flow is no longer flowing the way it used to be.
Why is it not flowing?
It affects the treasury because of the security situation prevailing in those regions.
The business people can no longer carry on their
business. Those that used to go to Nigeria to go and buy and bring, they can no longer go because there's no security. So custom generation of taxes has reduced enormously. Whether we like it or not, that is the true picture of what is going on. And if it continues the way I see things going, they will get to a time when there will be a standstill. I am pleading as one.
And we are almost there because
when the crisis started, children were marching with olive branches. Today is a different story. I don't know where they acquire guns. But I had warned on a program that the worst thing to happen in a country is for guns to get into the hands of civilians. Nobody listening to that cry. We are there today. How do we get out of the crisis?
And even some international non-governmental organizations like International Crisis Group had earlier warned that if something is not done fast, the arms are going to get into play, and that is what we are experiencing today.
Obviously. I mean, what else can we say? What else? It's a cry of a mother, the cry of a father in the wilderness, looking for their children, looking for their sisters and brothers. Again, we are all brothers and sisters, whether we like it or not. This Cameroon, this geographical location in West Africa, Central Africa, known as Cameroon, which lies almost on the equator, is a God-given country that belongs to everybody who was born and has lived in that country known as Cameroon.
And talking about the impact of the crisis on councils, your council, the Muyuka Council, is one of those councils affected by this problem. During the last council session, you were indicating that the council revenue has significantly dropped. Can we have some details on that?
Of course, because council rely on taxes. Now, because of the socio-political situation in Muyuka, there are certain areas that is a no-go to go and collect taxes. For example, you not want to take the risk to send somebody in Munyenge or Bafia to go and collect taxes. Again, as I told you,
have those places been captured by the secessionist fighters?
Well, it's a situation. It's a wait-and-see situation. I will not sit here and tell you that any place in Cameroon has been captured by those Cameroonians.
Then why will you not take the risk to send somebody there to go collect taxes?
Human life is more valuable than anything God has given to us. And so I value the life of my workers in the council than money. If one never knows, they happen to go there and something happens, it creates another crisis for the council.
Something like an attack?
Of course. Do you want to say you don't know that places have been attacked in Cameroon? You want to say you don't know? They have been attacked.
You are on the ground. And you
of course, I am on the ground. I'm giving a real situation. Those things happen. Those crises are there. Lives are being lost. Are they foreigners? Both our brave military guys and other Cameroonians, civilian Cameroonians as I can call. A life is worth a life. Whether it's from which side, it's a life. Do we need those children? Because you need to see the contingent who are dying below 30 years. Do we need all that blood to resolve Cameroonian issues? I don't think the role of any country, any government, is to protect its citizens. That is the number one oath of office that any leader would take. The sovereignty of a state to protect its citizens. But when citizens start killing themselves, then we need to look for a solution of what is going on. It is not a good atmosphere in Cameroon today.
And the big question, like you earlier indicated, is who is doing what? Because we have the killings on both sides, civilians,
of course,
and the military.
Yes.
And the civilians, the inhabitants, who talk to us are accusing the military of some excesses that lead to the deaths.
I am not on the field. I'm not a military guy. So I will not stand here to tell that I know exactly those excesses you are talking about. But one thing is for sure, people are dying. I guarantee that people are dying. Who is killing who, I don't know. But do we need to shed that amount of blood to redress problems in Cameroon? The question needs to be answered by those who are there to govern.
And because of the looming danger and uncertainty, the functioning of the council is seriously hampered.
I agree with you. I agree with you because, as I said, there are certain projects. For example, there was a project, construction of a nursery school, the market, and some boards in Muyenge. No contractor wants to go to Muyenge. Do you think the population of Muyenge deserve what is going on? Are they a major player in decision making on what is going on? Remember, those people of Muyenge, they are just our poor parents, farmers, who want nothing but bread and butter on their table. But they are being terrorized every day. This is a project that the council, in conjunction with PNDP, was about to be realized so that their children should go to good nursery schools, our children in the rest of the country. But that can't happen because of a situation which is not under their control. That is why I'm saying that something is wrong with Black Africa. Why is it that in the whole of Europe, you don't hear wars prolonging 1, 2, 3, 5 years? In Africa, wars in 1960 have been fought today. Just because Africans cannot sit down on the table and agree on the distribution of the national cake? Are we serious? What did God do to the black race? It's not, I mean, look at Africa. Go to Northern Africa, it's completely different. Go to South Africa, it's completely different. But when you come to Central Africa, the center part of Africa, it's all blacks. All wars are there. All mismanagement is there. Underdevelopment is there. What is wrong? Did we do something wrong to God to punish us?
And this has been contributing to maintain some communities in the enclave nature in which they have been, like the project you were talking about earlier in Muyenge. It was certainly going to help in
improve on the living condition of the population,
living condition of the people, and this is coming like something that is maintaining the people in their enclave nature.
Sure. And that is where the big question is, that with all the resources that are found in these countries, we can't even manage ourselves. Do we expect the Frenchman or the Englishman or the American man to come to Cameroon to resolve our problems? I don't think they have a mastery of what is happening in a country. And so what do they have as information from the social media, from some few non-profit organizations, and they draw their conclusions. Now, are they better placed than us Cameroonians to come out with proposed solutions to resolve our issues? I don't think so. But, Mr. Journalist,
and you earlier indicated that all of this is getting worse every day because we cannot agree. We can't sit down and agree on certain issues. And you talked of the sharing of the national cake. What is stopping us from agreeing?
It's a $1 million question. That's why I'm asking why the black race was being cursed by God. I'll give you a very good example. Take the Democratic Republic of Congo. Katanga has a mineral that is used for the manufacturing of cell phones. That is one of the richest areas on the planet Earth. Why is Congo always at war? The United Nations has been there since 1960, but they are still at war. You know why? It's simple. Just call all Congolese, sit on the table, and tell the people of Katanga, we know you have these resources. This is what we're going to do. We'll give you 10% of all what comes from your region, and the national territory will share the rest of it. I don't think those people will be too stupid not to accept. But if, as the black race believe, that we have the arms, we'll crush them, and we'll take everything for ourselves.
And that is what is happening today in the northwest and southwest
That's
regions.
what's happening in all of Africa.
The civilians
in Cameroon, I will tell you, Mr. Journalist, I can't believe that for 2 years when the thing started, we've not had that concrete roundtable conference to discuss on the future of our country. We keep saying it's political, it's political. But if we, the politicians, we shy away from taking our responsibilities for what we were given the power to do, then I don't know what else to tell you. It is the responsibility of the politicians, Cameroonian politicians. Let us say we need a third party. We have wonderful men of God who have proved their merits, who can mediate amongst Cameroonians and look for concrete. You just follow the Episcopal conference, which they came out with a decision. I think that was yesterday. Let us put that in practice and see whether it will not resolve the problems.
And why the politicians, the administrators, the government as a whole, and the other parties that are involved are tarrying to agree, are refusing to dialogue, even though they are preaching dialogue, refusing some subjects as taboos, notably talking about things like cessation, refusing some people that they can't come to the table. The grassroots is suffering. The innocent civilians are dying. Many of them can no longer go out and carry on their daily activities as usual.
Of course. But that's why I'm saying that something is really wrong with us. What is dialogue? I don't think you dialogue with a friend. You dialogue with somebody whom you disagree. What is taboo? Give me a break. No subject is taboo. Call everybody on the table. No subject is taboo. Call everybody on the table, and when you bring a topic, if the majority say no, then you don't have a place on that table. But if the majority is saying no, what is the alternative? Convince that person that, look, I'll give you the case of Cameroon. We have been existing as a country since 1959. There are intermarriages between Cameroonians. People are free to live from one province to another. There is free movement amongst Cameroonians. Do you sit down today to say you want to divide the country? Those intermarriages, do you share those children? I don't think that is the solution. But if you can call those people on the table and say, okay, look, fellow brothers, we have gone that far to talk about dividing the country. Tell us, why do you want the country to be divided? They will tell you about problems of marginalization. They will tell you about problems of development. A problem of one people trying to absorb the minority, not having a place. Look, all Cameroonians should have that aspiration to be the leader of the country. It is that country.
No, in very clear terms, are you adding your voice to that of the Archbishop of the Bamenda Metropolitan Archdiocese, for example, Michael Bibi, Reverend Father Michael Bibi, and others who are calling for the release of people like Mancho, BBC, Sisiku, Ayuk Tabe and his collaborators, and that they should be brought down to the dialogue table?
Now, if you are talking about solutions, my own proposals, I think if we want to get into the root cause of what is going on, and we are looking for solutions, honest solutions, I think the first point should be amnesty granted to those young men, girls and boys who either knowingly or unknowingly, because of their age and their environment, got involved on what is happening, what was going on previously. Grant the amnesty. They are not thieves. They are not terrorists. They are just children who were misled by somebody we don't know.
The Minister of Communication.
Why are they lamenting? Why are they lamenting where they are? Grant an amnesty. Once that is done, it gives an open window or door for everybody to say, okay, amnesty has been granted. Second thing is, propose that roundtable debate. I'll give you an example. 5 technocrats, NGOs, the society, the prelates, 5 from each region, 50 of them. Get them somewhere, say in Kribi, in a dark room, keep them there for 60 days, and come out with concrete proposals for what you believe Cameroon should be. There should be mediators. You have great men of God who can mediate, who can be there as interlocutors. 60 days is enough time for them to come out with solutions that will be transmitted to the head of state. He has a final say. If he wants to pass it through a referendum, as well taken. If he wants to pass through the National Assembly, that is his choice. He is the head of state. But I think in order for us to do that, for us to give confidence, for us to make all of us go back to the young men who are, I don't know where this thing is coming from, to plead to them, come back home. Let us see how together we can fix Cameroon. Because let me tell you something.
Do you think they can come back home with the present situation?
I believe with the present situation, I don't know.
Would their houses burnt down?
But let me tell you something.
Their relatives who have been killed.
The more houses we are burning, the more lucrative ground we are giving for those young men and women to join the so-called Ambazonian forces. One thing is very important, Mr. Journalist, today that we have to do. Those children need a message of hope.
Unfortunately, no member of the government, for example, has gone there to see them in Nigeria. They're there in their thousands, and even the Aya Foundation.
I think the governor.
Even the Aya Foundation that was going there.
The governor of the Southwest.
Some weeks back, some days back, they were hindered from entering Nigeria.
No, the governor of the Southwest region has gone there. I'm strongly aware of that. He has gone there, and he's a member of government. His region was highly affected, so he went there. Now, but let me tell you something. Again, if you give a message of hope to those children, they will start listening.
Yeah, but that's the problem. The message of hope is not coming. The message of hope is not coming.
Well, I believe we're just playing with time.
When Sisiku, Ayub Tabe and the others were in the Federal Republic of Nigeria, we heard that some government members went there. We heard what happened. But now, the refugees are there in their thousands. You went there to arrest the secessionists, and then now to go and check about your own citizens. That's...
Well, I don't sit here to know all the details of what you are talking about. But I want to assure you that if the situation in the country gets better, they will return. Remember that those men and women who fled the country to a neighboring country was not the best option for them. They did that because of the situation in which they find themselves.
But they were in between life and death. That's
and
why
the only way in which, as I tell you, could start bringing back those refugees is that assurance. Take, for example, if they hear that the head of state has granted a general amnesty to all those who were involved in that crisis, the 22nd of May and the 1st of 22nd of September and 1st of October, general amnesty. All of them are coming back. Just those group of people coming back, the message will spread like wildfire, and they will know that, okay, if those of our brothers who were arrested are coming back, we should also go back and start contributing in building this wonderful nation. And
contrary to that, the case of Mancho BBC, for example, was adjourned again to the 24th of April.
Might be it was adjourned, we don't know.
Ben Terence was sentenced to 12 years imprisonment and slammed a fine of 5 million francs.
Do you think that Mr. Terence can have 5 million?
That's the question.
Let us be realistic.
That's the question. Somebody who has been in jail, somebody who is expected to.
I just want to believe that the punishment meted on him was a lesson, and to deter others from not committing the same offense which he did, if at all one was committed. I was not on the ground. I don't know what is going on. To be honest with you, most of the information we get it through social media and other means of communication.
Anyway, we retain that you're calling for general amnesty.
I am. I strongly support that.
As a way out of the
crisis. I strongly support that. I think it's the role of a father to excuse his children if at all they commit an error. I mean, it happens. All your children cannot behave the same. You must have good children and those who we believe are not don't behave well. What will you do? You will not throw any of them. You will only try to nurture, to input into them a culture which they can be self-represented in society. That is the essence of life.
All right, we're going to take a short break. Time for us to take a look at what the newspapers reported this week. Coming up, the press review. Start this edition of the press review with The Voice newspaper. The main news on the front page of this edition of The Voice newspaper talks about the war in Bello. It is in the northwest region of the country, and according to the paper, a police commissioner shot 16 civilians to death. Amazonian fighters destroyed bridges to stop troops who were attacking from multiple fronts, forcing families to flee. We equally take a look at the front page of the Post newspaper, and the Post newspaper talks about Frundi, who is spitting fire. The paper indicates that Frundi spits fire on the Anglophone crisis, stating that he has no problem with Anglophone restorationists, or better still, cessationists and Anglophone restorationists. He accuses the CPDM militants, that's militants of the Cameroon People's Democratic Movement, CPDM political party, of disguising as Ambazonians to kidnap Social Democratic Front councillors. Now we take a look at the front page of the News Watch newspaper. Cameroonian Anglophone refugees starving to death in Nigeria. The paper talks about the deplorable situation of thousands of Cameroonians who are now seeking refuge in President Buhari's country, indicating that many of them are starving to death, with children now suffering from diarrhea, cholera, and other diseases. And the Star newspaper indicates that Ambazonian spokesman condemns colleagues for killing a pastor. That is the main one of the news headlines on the front page of the Star newspaper, which indicates in another news article that work on the 1.130 billion euro Nachtigall among hydroelectric dam is going to begin in July this year. The Guardian Post, in one of its issues, indicates that the President of the Republic of Cameroon recycles all guards in senatorial appointment. We equally have the Star newspaper that talks about the army demanding for proofs of excesses in the northwest and southwest regions of the country. The paper indicates that the army is highly accused, with the population pointing accusing fingers at elements of the National Armed Forces for the excesses in the Anglophone crisis in the northwest and southwest regions of the country, and the army is demanding proofs for that. We equally have the Guardian Post, as I indicated earlier, which indicates that the President of the Republic has maintained all guards as far as the senatorial appointment is concerned, by maintaining people like Marcel Njifenji, the President of the Senate, as well as Fonvi Mukete, Daikoli Daisala, Tame Masuma, and of course others who have been maintained among the 30 senators appointed by the President of the Republic. Now we take a look at the front page of the Rambler. University of Buea holds mayor's academic fraud, withdraws his degree certificates for entering into the university fraudulently. That is talking about the mayor of Buea, Kema Patrick Songe, whose degree certificates have been withdrawn by the University of Buea for alleged fraud. Those are some of the issues that we gathered from the newspapers this week. Now, coming back to you, Lord Mayor, we're going to talk about decentralization now, and many critics have indicated that the failure to effectively implement decentralization as enshrined in the 1996 Constitution of the Republic of Cameroon is one of the root causes of what is happening now, the socio-political impasse in the northwest and southwest regions of the country. What's your take on that?
If not, the real cause has been the lack of implementation of that 1996 Constitution. I am a major actor on the field. I'm the mayor of Muyuka. Before that law was signed into promulgation, it was because those actors who drafted that constitution saw that the over-centralized system has failed. They came out with that constitution with good faith. And I think at that time, though it had its own demerits, but Cameroonians saw into it a way forward for a better Cameroon. 22 years later, we are sitting on the same table here, still talking about the 1996 Constitution. That is why I mentioned earlier that the black race has been cursed. We all agree on something. After 22 years, we are still talking on the same subject. Who do we want to come and implement? Is it the white man? No. The effect of non-decentralization has a lot of impact on those components that are not at the center of management.
What are some of the aspects of decentralization that are not being implemented to date?
What has been implemented? I don't know. It's simple. Let us take, for example, the definition of decentralization. It means those aspects of the state which is managed at the central level should be sent back to the local collectivity. Human resource, financial resource. I don't know which of the two has been implemented. Now, simple calculus.
So in the
simple calculus, the national budget this year is 4,500 billion. Say you have awarded 10% of the national budget to the decentralized collectivity, that takes you to 450 billion. And there are almost 374 councils and government delegates. Those bigger ones send them 3-4 billions. Those smaller ones send them 1 billion. Let the central government be the resource person to oversee the management of those resources. Once it is defined, the local collectivities which have councillors who are acting as the legislative body of the councils can now deliberate on those projects that are to be executed with that money. Put that money into the treasuries of the local collectivities. Put that money into the treasuries. Give them the open hand to manage freely those resources. I bet you, Mr. Journalist, in 5 years' time, miracles will happen. Because every mayor will know that I have a task to render to my population after 5 years. I will not be re-elected if I cannot demonstrate to them that I am their servant to provide for them a better living condition with the resources that have been allocated to the councils. Let the government make it open. CRT should announce that Muyuka Council was given this amount. Insult Council was given this amount. If they want us to define our priorities according to our CDPs for the budgetary allocation to be made to us, we shall do it. Once that is implemented, it withdraws the responsibilities of providing these basic necessities to our local population from the central government to the local government. Teachers still run to Yaoundé for their salaries being suspended. They have to go to Yaoundé. Some turn around, go to our courts, go to Muyuka court. You see the dilapidated situation which our magistrates are facing. You will ask yourself a question: do they merit this type of situation? But if we have the resources, no, I will not want my magistrates to be under that condition. I have to provide for them a conducive environment, because they need a lot of reasoning, a lot of reading in order to come out with those judgments as far as criminals are concerned.
Are you saying that the resources and the human resource are not being, the financial resources have not been transferred to the council up to now?
But Mr. Journalist, if that is done, am I the person to tell you that it has been done or not? The newspaper are there, the radio stations are there.
You're an actor and you're being
of course.
To tell us
I haven't received, and if I receive, I will tell you. Are you trying to tell me that Muyuka was allocated one nursery school, one zootechnical center in Muyuka, one in Ekona, for how many million, and you say those are resources being allocated? Is that all what Muyuka deserve? Now, the other day, they came out with a prime ministerial decree that 10 billion has been allocated to councils. I received this decentralization fund once for Muyuka. I know how much I received. I received 45 million. My grandstand, I buried my grandstand, a market in Malinde, and a market in Ekata. Once since 2013. Now, the other day they announced that 10 billion has been allocated.
All right, Lord Mayor, we're going to take interviews of the week right now. When we come back, we'll talk about the Prime Ministerial Decree allocating 10 billion francs CFA to decentralization and 5 billion francs CFA to local councils. Interviews of the week.
The military men are still being killed. In retaliation, the military killed the civilians and destroyed property. And I think that it has reached a stage that the head of state, our father and our president, if you have children in the house who are secessionists or terrorists, I think it's important to bring them together for an inclusive dialogue with everybody involved, so that they can actually bring out what their grievances are, and be able to, you should be able to find out from them, what makes them to behave the way they are behaving, and if possible, if the solutions taken so far is not resolving the problem, it means there is something fundamental that still needs to be done. And I think having that dialogue and getting everybody involved is going to be of help.
We are very, very concerned about the situation in the southwest and the northwest regions. We intend to contribute to find solutions. At our level, we welcome all the people coming from that regions to find in our church places, schools, and many accommodations. This is the sign of our solidarity in concrete practice. We also intend to, in this conference, to share with all the bishops and look for what can be now the best way to stop violence, to stop aggressions, and to live together after this crisis.
The general chief of staff of the army, the joint chief of staff of the army came here to raise the situation, security situations in the northwest region. We can say that the situation in the northwest is fairly well. He told us that we should understand that the population is at the center of our activities here, that we do everything to make sure that the population should be excluded, safeguarded, that those who want to instill an atmosphere of fear and terror should be chased and brought to book, and that we should rely on the judicial system of the country. Our professional soldiers, and we are in a state of law. He told us that the more we assure the population, the more we have people coming to us for information, and the more they cooperate with us. It's important that their problems and their civilian issues should be handled by us in providing amenities that we will do, like opening our health services to them and be available if need be when they call for help. That we should be able, and that while we carry our duties, we have a humane face, that we should be polite.
It honors the defense and security forces, and more particularly the National Gendarmerie, composed of men and women engaged under the national colors to ensure the security of persons and property.
This is the fifth time patrol vessel, Spanish patrol vessels comes to Douala. We've been working also from a long time from the distance, although we cannot be here on a permanent way. So we are working, it's not only what you see, we also work at sea, and well, Spain has interest in being here in the Gulf of Guinea. And this is a very particular area, so working with Cameroon, it's one of the best things we can do at this moment. Also to know what's happening here in the Gulf of Guinea, to understand the maritime environment, so we can do a safer maritime environment here. We're working on diving operations. We're working on maritime interdiction operations to be able to board the vessel. We're also working on firefighting, damage control exercises, and also on medical exercises.
About Father Nkodo, yes, now he has been called by the judiciary authority to give his version of facts. He's free, but he now following what we can say a process, and we are looking for the end of this process to know exactly what is the truth about this problem that all the people is now talking about.
We have a suspect case of epidemic, and we have a confirmed case of epidemic. Consider a suspect case of epidemic, we should have 5 cases, consecutive 5 cases in 4 weeks in the same health district. That we can consider as a suspect case of an outbreak, an epidemic. But to confirm that it's the epidemic, it means that you have 3 positive cases in 4 consecutive weeks in the same district, to prevent if, first, to get their child being vaccinated, and secondly, in case of epidemic, avoid the close contact between children presenting general rashes.
My heart is filled with gratitude to the head of state for President Paul Biya for appointing me as one of the senators for the Northwest region. I'm part of the team that will be working for this region, because you know that the head of state's first priority is for the population, that the population should be satisfied, and all efforts is aimed at satisfaction for the population. So as part of this team, I would say that we will work very hard, hand in hand, I hope, with the LDF, some LDF senators, that we would not disappoint the head of state to work for the population of this region, and why not for the whole country, because what happens here affects the nation as a whole.
And very excited, very excited for this nomination. It's a recognition of the hard work that Mamundi has put in. And we know that in this time of crisis, Mamundi has been one of our leaders in this region. So I know and I expect that with this recognition from the highest levels, she will continue to carry on this very important work for our people, for our region, and for the nation of Cameroon.
This is the second convention for the CRM between 5 years, because 5 years ago we founded this political party, and since 5 years we are in the National Assembly, and we are the youngest political party in the National Assembly. Only 5 years. The older political party in the National Assembly was born in 1948. Another one in 1966 or 1985. And some other one, it was in the 90s, in 1990 or 1992. We are the youngest, but we are there among 305 political parties in Cameroon. So we are increasing. We are working on the field, on the hotspot, political hotspots. So we think that now our hope, our ambition, we are convinced that we should be the first political party in Cameroon.
For Douala, one of the first issues is the transport network, because the transport network makes it a very challenging city, and business would lose money. You know, if you can get something from A to B quicker, then you actually affect your business quicker. So the first thing for me is transportation. Then obviously the second thing I believe which Douala has, which is a huge challenge, is not just architectural, but it affects the cityscape and design, is the urban influx. Those who come from the rural areas into the urban areas to try to make their lives better. You can't stop that. So I think that there needs to be a mechanism and a program to actually cater for that population who tend to be the marginalized groups and who tend to operate in the informal sector. So you see, this is a problem which is not just the architecture, what you see, but there are other layers beneath that, you know, the social, the cultural, and the immigration and migration. So that's the second thing. Now the third thing, I believe, is to do with, if Douala is quite, in terms of its location above sea level, is quite low compared to a town like Boya or Chang. You know, in Boya and Chang, the temperature is quite subdued, it's quite pleasant. But in Douala, because the temperature is so hot, the designs need to have a lot of cross ventilation. But you enter into some buildings that do not have air conditioning, there is not sufficient cross ventilation. So I think in terms of designing the specific building, there needs to be more cross ventilation.
Our aims for the holiday classes is to catch up with the children. If we leave these children for 2 weeks, most of the things that they were taught during the second term and first term, they will forget. We take about 75% of our time on English and mathematics, because these are the subjects that will be written in the common entrance. Then the other 25% we put general paper, ICT.
If you take a classroom for about 80 to 100 students, it is but obvious that we shall have some students who will really be lagging behind. And so they need that something extra, that extra push. And that extra push can only come from something like this holiday classes.
When you see somebody coming, you say welcome. When you see somebody going, you say goodbye. When you turn up on the bed, you say good morning.
You welcome back. Lord Mayor, we have just some few minutes to go. The President of the Republic indicated that decentralization was going to be accelerated, and now the Prime Ministerial decree comes allocating 10 billion francs CFA to decentralization and just 5 billion francs CFA to the local councils. Is this enough to accelerate decentralization?
I think the process of acceleration is still in keeping in line with what the head of state promised with the creation of a decentralized ministry. I strongly believe that still working on the various people to be responsible in implementing that 1996 decree. However, having said that, the Prime Ministerial text allocating 10 billion to the local collectivities, should I say is in the right direction or whatever, I don't know. But I think 5 billion was allocated to the local collectivity, 3 billion for mayor salary, and 2 billion for meetings. We are still having meetings today, after 22 years, in the implementation of the 1996 decree. It's like we are mocking ourselves. How do you share 5 billion among 373 councils? What percentage is 5 billion to the national budget of 4,500 billion? Either we do something or we don't do it. We shall keep living as Cameroonians, as brothers and sisters.
In a nutshell, you're saying that is grossly insufficient.
Do the maths for yourself. I know even if you are not a math student, you can do the arithmetic. What percentage is 5 billion as compared to 4,500 billion? How do you share 5 billion to 373 councils? So when you send 15 million, 20 million to a council, is to do what? I don't know. But I think while waiting on securities, which has been given to him by the head of state, and do what is necessary for the local collectivities to take off.
Thank you very much,
Mayor.
Thank you very much, Mayor King Michael, for accepting to be a guest in this edition of The Insight. Thanks.
You're welcome.
That was Mayor King Michael of the Muyuka Council in the southwest region of the country. He was a guest on this edition of the program. Thanks, ladies and gentlemen, for staying with us. Take the appointment for another edition of the program next Sunday, 6:30 p.m.